Hello, everyone. This is Tamara Childs, your psychic intuitive at 1-2-Listen and empath coach. I'm here with my friend today, June the 15th, 2017. I'm here with Ruth McCants, marvelous, extraordinary soul sound insight teacher, musician, and astrologer. And we decided to hop on here and do a quick show. You know, today is it's Sun opposed Saturn. And so there's a little bit of a tone to the week, I think. Do you feel that a little bit, Ruth?
Well, when you said that, I also just today, with that moon in Pisces, helping to mellow out that opposition, it's giving us, in fact, it gives me a smile. It's giving me an internal smile because every time the moon goes into Pisces, I take an aha moment. It's like, thank you, I can breathe a little bit. So that's where I am.
The moon in Pisces is very forgiving, and I think since you and I both have planets in Pisces, we can feel that. And anybody listening to this, even if they're just listening on YouTube later on after what this is recorded, you can feel how this might be a great week. I mean, this is Thursday of the week, and it might be a great time to just, like you said, mellow out and let go of the pressure that we're putting on ourselves this week. I think there's a little bit of a note in the universe that we have to keep climbing the mountains that are in front of us. And I think sometimes we just need, especially the emotional self, just needs some downtime and a little cuddle time with this Pisces moon, you know, just to feel comforted.
Let me give you an example of something, and I was driving home and I was going, that actually felt really good. I went to, usually I play music, I go to a jam session on Sundays, and it's quite intense because as much as I love my horn players, they're an intense bunch. Last night, I decided to go to the jam session and it was guitar players. And what I recognized was that many of them, particularly acoustic players, singers, songwriters, and guitar players, they sit in a very solitary kind of energy. And it really is an extraordinary kind of situation when they come out of their studios and they are coming and being willing to play whatever they've been working on for other people. And it was a really, as I sat there, because I did one number on piano, and then there were about 10 guitar players, and they all came and they played their songs, and there was a kind of energy, and that, to my way of feeling, and I don't know if Pisces is so much thinking as feeling, it just mellowed the energy out. And as I was driving home, I said, you know, that's a blessing to have that kind of situation where you have, first of all, a forum for people so they can play. And then the other is to actually witness that creative energy. And that was, I actually saw the Pisces energy in motion with all of them coming out of wherever they've been and sharing with us. In fact, they're the real deep divers, and they come up out of that Piscean ocean of creativity.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I love about your work that we really share is this emphasis on cycles and being aware of where are you right now? What is your week really like? Where are you in your cycles? And I think that that's really important because sometimes we're not in tune with ourselves, and we're not. And as you were talking about that I was thinking about the difference between a horn, and the Judgment card came up in my mind, you know, in the tarot. I was like, the trumpeter, like horns are meant to be sort of piercing and intense in a way. They're announcers of things, and yet stringed instruments are much more like the ocean waves, you know, they're just feeling tones. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Last night. It was, that's a very good description, Tamara. because that's what it felt like as they all came up and they played whatever they were playing. And some people sang, some people just played their guitar. But that's a really good description of those string instruments, the waves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just setting a timer to alert us, although that'll probably be very alarming. So hopefully not. So we wanted to get together. We decided that this was a day that we wanted to talk a little bit about not only being in touch with your cycles, that's always appropriate, but when you're going through something that feels a little bit like a tunnel, or there are things going on with your body that are causing you to slow down and feel, I don't want to say a dark night of the soul, but I kind of do, because we have little mini dark nights of the soul, don't we?
I think so. Yes. We have reminders. We have pauses along the way on the pet, because we're each on our quest. And it's like, I think they're like little stations that we come to on that. There's the journey, and then there are the pathways, and we have these little stops. So yes, I think so. Mini dark nights.
Mini shadow moments where we're feeling like, and we're doing this show partly for people watching who may be having some mini dark moments and feeling like, how do you navigate those moments? How do you get into what that path is calling you in the moment, instead of just like what I call a spiritual bypass, when you just sort of check out and say, well, that's not really happening, or you avoid it, or you try to bump yourself out of it, try to get over it, rather than understanding what's in it for you.
Well, I agree with you, because just recently, not that I consciously planned it, but just a week ago, I didn't have a voice. And so I had to ask myself, it's not a usual occurrence. And much of the work that I do is using my voice. And so I had to ask myself, what, first of all, is the meaning? I had to sit in reflection about not having a voice, particularly since much of the work is also having to put the voice into the world. And in those moments of literally having to be silent, because I was whispering like this,
Yeah.
And only for a few moments could I talk to people. And then it's like I needed to go back into that silence. And you and I have talked about this as going into the deep dive. Mm-hmm. Because it requires going into, first of all, physically, I had to go into my body and say, all right, body, what are you telling me? Because and if we use metaphysics, if we look at it from the psycho-spiritual point of view, we sometimes term the centers in our bodies as chakras. So I was saying, what's happening with the fifth chakra? What's happening with my heart chakra? What's happening with my sixth chakra? Mm-hmm. And so it really does require, I think, part of the voice in terms of the meaning of voice, being quiet. I had to be really quiet and listen even more to that inner wisdom, that inner voice, because we think we're listening sometimes. But in my case, apparently I wasn't listening close enough. So the universe says, okay, I'll give you a treat. I'm going to just close it down for a little while.
I'm giving you a treat. That's an interesting first message from this talk, I think, for those of you listening. When there's something that feels like it's just not going right, or you're getting exhausted, or you're feeling under the weather, maybe the universe is giving you a treat. And part of that is going to be a slowdown. And as Ruth is saying, it's a reflection, a moment to reflect. And I think because sometimes I like to say that we get habituated to feelings that are not necessarily in our best interest. Sometimes we will, someone will speak with me about having dealing with a person or getting advice from somebody, and 3 days later they're feeling so low, And I might ask them, do you feel like this advice was really for the best for you? I mean, if that's how you're feeling. And for someone who's habituated to feeling like they're wrong generally, and so they have to correct something all the time, that bad feeling can feel like it's normal. And I think reflection is really wonderful to say, what if there's and this is the Pisces moon too, Ruth, isn't it? That maybe that bad feeling is something that is not natural to you, even if you've been feeling it habitually.
Absolutely.
And you need some comfort and to kind of come back to that healing space of you.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because anything that ultimately takes us out of our real joy and zest for life, we have to question that. Whether we habitually have been walking around saying, "Oh well, it doesn't matter. I don't feel really good most of the time," and as you, very good word, habituated to that. It's almost resolving and resigning oneself to the fact that joy is not for me, zest is not for me, emotional, spiritual, soul vitality is not for me. And I think a lot of what messages we get is that we're supposed to live at that low level energy space.
Exactly.
That's not true.
I'm so glad you said that, because you and I are both joy workers in our own ways. We have our own ways of doing it, but it's really the revolution that we're doing has to do with, what if your life is meant to be loved and lived and enjoyed? And what if the messages of that sort of low level, well, I should feel bad because that's just the way everybody feels, is really a mistake, and it's a mistaken impression of the purpose of life. And I think during weeks where people may be feeling a little bit of that tone, it's so great for us to pop in and do a show on how you can access that joyful space of you. And I know, so like the first tool you're offering is reflection. And, we all know that when things aren't going well, we stop and slow down. We have to stop and slow down. Otherwise we stub our toe.
Right. Well, and my voice was my stubbed toe, because it was actually a little bit painful. And there would be people who said, "Can you talk about this? Can you talk about this?" And all of a sudden I had to say no, because my voice basically said, "No, this is a stubbed toe, and you have to pay attention to your own self-care." First of all, that's the second one. Reflection and self-care is not we've all been taught that, to some extent, taking care of ourselves is something that other people do who are quote unquote selfish. But no, that's not the truth. In fact, I want to mention a very old book called The Art of Selfishness. And it's by Dr. David Seabury. It was written probably in the 1940s, but it's still a wonderful book to read, because he basically says you cannot live your life fully, joyfully, if you do not understand that it is important to have an element of selfishness, which means to direct toward who you are.
I like that very much. It's funny how we, in the personal development fields, we kind of keep recycling information. It's funny, things get buried under a pile of new stuff, and then we go to that. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with someone this week about, Landmark and Aston and that whole way of working. And it's funny because it's important with all of the things that are available to us to develop who we are, to look at, does this really serve me on a deeper level? Is this in line and in keeping with my self-love perspective and the level of my self-love? There's a lot of tough love stuff that's in the the new age market too.
Yes, there's that, yeah, a lot of, just stick to it. And well, yeah, that it is that we do need to draw boundaries and have a focus. But when you have that, you better just make yourself that kind of hurts in a strange way. That
Or reduce who you are so that you can be built back up. I mean, isn't that's sort of a military concept, that you let go of your individuality and then you are rebuilt as a better, more machine-like human being? And that's not at all our field and what we do. I'd love to talk a little bit. You and I are both using some cards. We're going to just sort of do a little card reading. Do we want to do that today?
Let's go ahead, and because we discovered that this is really interesting. You live in one area of the country, and I live on the other coast, and we picked essentially the same card.
Yes, we just met now, and we were, met up to do our show, and we chose cards right before the show, not knowing which ones each of us, we were using the Aboriginal Goddess Chakra cards, which are, this is what they look like, everybody. And so, would you like to start with the cards that you drew? Or at least we...
Card is you. If you hold the card up, the very same card, I picked my card about 9:30 this morning, and that was the very same card that I picked.
This is Divine Messenger, everybody. And it's funny we're talking about the voice. This is Divine Messenger, meaning for me that we are meant to, first of all, this is fifth chakra. It's the voice. It's where the guides come in to inform you about what your life is about and how to stay on target, and to not just listen to anybody's advice about anything, but to know that there's this deeper voice inside that we are really, this is, what's the true blue voice inside? What is...
That's, Tamara, that's great. The true blue voice inside. And that's a great descriptor.
Because you can find, for example, let's just use astrology for a second, Ruth. I mean, there are astrologers who work up charts in very different ways. And if you go to 5 different astrologers, one will focus intensely on possibly the limitations in your chart. Another might focus on, the high points of your chart, and they may not even match each other. And I think that ultimately, each of us needs to pay attention to this connection. Well, that's another of our cards that we both chose. This is connection. And it's really...
The second card that I picked Divine Messenger, just like you did.
Yeah.
Without sight unseen. We hadn't talked to each other. And then the next one I picked was connection.
And connection, how do you read that with Divine Messenger for people this week? Just, it really is that inner connection. If somebody tells you, you're not meant to be happy, or you're just, not that somebody would say this, but just you're cursed, everything bad is going wrong with you, and it's supposed to be that way because of something, is that your divine messenger? And is that the inner connection with you? If we're here to grow and to be joyful, how do you...
I would tell that if you hired that person and they came to you with you're cursed, and all of these negative things, I'd say, get your money back and head for the door. Because you don't want to have somebody put that kind of thing on you.
I also love the heart image in this.
That's a beautiful, when I got that, that just resonated, because the heart, where does connection come from? Heart to heart.
Right. So when we have a difficult passage in life, a dark night, and we need to do this deep dive, sometimes the heart is not the first place we're trained to go, is it? We'll go into either below the heart, into all the feelings and the emotions, and sometimes feel kind of stuck there, or we'll be in the head trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? And of course, a question like, what am I doing wrong, brings you a lot of information you don't want. So
it's a head trip that, now when I think about what are you doing wrong, that brings up the suit of sword cards in tarot, because somehow when I think and when I look at the suit of the swords, it's like the wrongness starts to come through, and the heart you got to have, because that's the mental, because the swords really are the mental, and then like you said, the emotional second, third chakra and that energy, and then the heart has to be the transformer. It's the connector between this thought processes, what we're saying, and it's centered here, and it's the transformer. And if we don't get there to transform all of this stuff, what happened?
Yeah, because I think, especially when you're going through a hard time, the questions you ask are very vital. You might ask, how does it get any better than this? Or what else is possible? Or what makes me feel good inside? Sometimes you need to take a break from the problem solving, because when I think of the sword cards, I think that in order to solve a problem, you have to have a problem to solve. And sometimes you get into this mode of, what are my problems? What are my issues? What do I need to solve? Rather than
Right.
just accepting your
Absolutely.
essential nature.
Absolutely. You need to say that again, because if we get into, and that's what we're oriented to in our culture, is the problems, but you can never answer the problem at the same level. You can't get answers at the level of the problem.
That's right. That's right. So we have to unplug from the energy that makes us is making us feel bad in that moment, and in that passage that you're going through. You have to unplug and know that there's a higher solution, possibly at a different level. It's going to be at a different level. And then the third card we each drew, our cards are related but different. Mine was creativity.
And mine was fertility.
Yours is fertility. And so, do you have your card in front of you, or
Yes,
you
I have it
just
with
drew
us
it?
in front of me. If you can pull it out of the deck, it's in the red. It's in the red group.
Oh, I may not be able to find it quickly, but fertility, talk about fertility for a moment.
Well, the fertility card in this whole oracle system is new growth, manifestation.
Yeah.
I'm sitting, because I've done this deep dive. Remember, the voice left, and then I had to deep dive and go inside and get really quiet and and check out what has been going on. And so this fertility card was really a wonderful gift, because it says, hey, you're standing on the brink of something new. New growth is going to take place.
I
But
found it.
oh, there, she got it. I had to look at springing forth. It's like the phoenix, because my moon is in Scorpio. It's like my Scorpio moon says, things are rising forth and new manifestation is occurring.
And you are rising forth is also what I
And
get very, very much from this image, because she's coming from the fire itself, which is very interesting. And so there's something a little courageous about this card, and it may be a note or a reading for those watching, that sometimes when you're going through something difficult, the courage comes from the fire of what you're going through as well, and that you're being, I'm trying to think of how you work with metals in hot fire and it remolds
that's
them
what I
into
mean.
something
It's the
new.
alchemy, because we have to take the base, the junk, if you
Yeah.
will, and it has to be transformed, because everything is energy. But I love alchemy. I love the concept of the alchemic process. That old has to be, there you go with the creativity. The old, that, and Scorpio base really talks about what is of no use. Pluto ruling Scorpio says all of that stuff has to die in order for you to rise up and become the new.
And I feel like that is a very timely thing to say this week, Ruth, this week of mid-June 2017. So many
Yeah.
people are having moments where they're not sure they can transform their situation into what they truly wish and know in their hearts is the message from their soul.
Well, we're
And
here to say you can.
we're here to say you
You
can.
can.
And the creativity card to me speaks of, oh, sorry about that. At the beginning, you had said, trying to keep ourselves on a time limit today, but at the beginning, you had said this interesting thing that I so agree with, that a lot of what goes on in our world when we talk about the economy and what we're doing with our personal lives and has to do with, well, don't expect too much, don't go too high, because you're supposed to be just a little bit under the weather or just not feeling that great about life and not in the joy spectrum. Now, this creativity card to me has to do with when we rise above that other lowest common denominator energy, and we begin to be playful or creative. Sometimes what you get in the world from other people is a feeling of, what's that all about? I'm not sure, how are you doing that? That's not like all the rest of us. And I think this is one of the ways through the dark nights as well, the dark nights of the soul.
And you make an excellent point with the creativity and playfulness. In order to change much of what's going on to be in the spectrum of joy and zest, we have to go back to the inner child, that playfulness. And I grant you, it's not easy, because the teaching and the culture is, you're an adult. But what does that really mean?
I know. What is that? Well, the thing is that people who are actively involved in creativity, which you and I both are, we know the secret that in order to rise above and get that message from the heart and from the soul. I love these images. I have to keep holding these cards up because it goes so well with what we're saying. In order to get that divine message, that comes from that higher connection, you're going to have to be this energy. You're going to have to be this energy, and it's not going to look like other people say or approve of, and I think part of what a lot of people are letting go of right now is checking out with the world. Is this okay with you? Is it okay if I be this energy? Is it okay if I rise above this state of almost a malnutrition of the spirit?
That is so apropos. Malnutrition of the spirit. And part of that I want to add is it's linked with balancing the sacred feminine with the masculine energy. We've had a lot of energy with action, but we got to balance. And all of those cards are the sacred feminine energy that is bringing us into balance. And without it, we're not whole. We just simply are beings who a little part of us is over here and a little part over there. So yes, we have to balance.
Yeah, we get compartmentalized. I feel like we had decided to make this a pretty quick show today, just to kind of get this message out here and talk a little bit, because sometimes when you're feeling kind of a dark shadow moment or a dark passage, sometimes you want to skip over it, like I said in the beginning, and you just don't want to talk with a lot of people about it because you feel like your life should be going a different way than it is. And I feel like our message today, Ruth, is creativity. Just be this playful part of you, and know that as you create something, it will be a very unique part of your spirit, because that's what creativity is. It's spirit.
Well, particularly in these couple of days when the moon phase is sitting in the sign of Pisces, is an excellent time to do exactly that. To really and truly let yourself play, let myself play, let you play, because we have to have balance. And that, again, I come back, what we lack within our society, with personally and collectively, is we're very much out of balance. And I don't even know how to say it. That has to take place. We have to rebalance, renew, reconnect, even relax.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that, especially for this Sun opposed Saturn day
Yes, yes.
and this week where, sometimes people are feeling like, God, I've done all the work, and why is my life still feeling a little bit this way? And these are moments to really, I think, just truly fall into this space. And
Like I said, that's why last night watching, particularly the guitar players, that was, I was in that, it was a very sacred moment just to watch and feel that energy, because everybody played, but I was really feeling how what happens when you allow yourself to be in that creative, playful. It was a quiet kind of joy as each person played.
yeah, I think that joy and this knowing that you're allowed to have joy, even in
That's
the
right.
midst of the things that you're working on and focusing on, and in the midst of coming out of this fire, that you're allowed to be joyful, and that that's part of what we really, truly are here to do. Ruth,
Well, I think beyond that, Tamara, I think it's even more than allowed. That is an innate part of our spiritual soul being. And that's what we've all missed.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, are there any I know we were going to keep this to be a shorter show today, just to talk about these things. And we'll probably do some more, I think, about the feminine energy. If you're watching this on YouTube, just put a comment about what you would like to hear more about, because we both are involved in taking a mystical perspective of life. And these cards in this show today are part of that, and part of really not running away from the darker moments in our lives, but embracing them and rising to a new level in your life. And it's a spiritual thing that you're doing. Ruth, is there anything that you would like to
Say it, it, it's spiritual, but it plays out in our lives in every aspect. And
Mhm.
not for all of us, not to run away from our own quest and journey to enjoy it.
Yes, so true. And I would love for people to know where to find you if they want to have a chart reading or some more of your wisdom. So just let's tell them your website.
You can find me at soulsoundinsights.com. There's an S on the end of insights, and you can find me there. You can find me on Google Plus and also on Instagram.
Yes, she is all over the place. And
Well, a few places, a few
she's a
places.
few places, and you can find me, perhaps connect with me on my Facebook page. I would love to have more of a conversation with you about what's coming up. That's Tamara Childs Conscious Insights, or tamarachilds.com. And you can also get a reading from me at one2listen.com. So we're going to have some more of these shows. And Ruth, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I know you have a busy schedule, and I just feel like this way of looking at our mystical selves in our real lives is really valuable to the people who are interested in living with more joy. So thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
And by the way, if anybody wants to get just the very beginning of their astrology, if you've been curious, also over on Skillshare. You can find me on Skillshare, and I have an entry there. It's free. You can call using astrology to map your life. And so if you go to Skillshare, you can find me there, and you can do a little tiny short course of 23 minutes, and you can begin the process of doing your astrology chart.
Wonderful. Self-knowledge is everything. It's the starting
Absolutely.
place for living a life of joy. So that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'd love to hear your comments and hear from you. So So
Thank you, Tamara. It's always a
yes,
great pleasure being here with you.
thank you, Ruth. It's very fun, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.